You sound remind me of my passion for flying. Space is an extension of aviation, the way I think of it. We're ready for another great day in space and ready for a great day in aviation.
All right, well, now we should have audio, I hope. I just have to wait because there's a huge delay on YouTube. So once I can confirm it, I can actually proceed to the show. And annoying messages. Okay, how can I do this the best way? Here, I guess. Just a little bit more, yeah. Okay, so anyway, I have the audio now. I'm just gonna move because now my chair moved as well. Oh boy. Okay, all right. So, yep, I'm gonna give a few minutes for people to join in. Hopefully now they have the sound and everything and the image. If there are any problems, do let me know in the chat. Both Facebook or YouTube is fine for me. I can check both. So, oof, damn, that just made me tired actually. These stupid things like this. Well, before I start the show, I just wanted briefly to comment on some of the people that leave comments on my page. And I always say that evidence is king. So if you say that hey, this is some kind of big conspiracy, or you just don't accept the scientific data, then you need to propose something by yourself. How do you explain certain natural things that are happening right now? How do you explain the concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere, for example? I'd really like to know your method. Let me know and then I will follow it. But if you just say, I feel this is wrong, and I just disagree with the entire scientific community, uh, that really doesn't make any point whatsoever. And also, it just showed me that people really don't understand science properly. They kind of cherry pick certain things. Like, okay, I'm gonna focus on this one little tiny thing, but I'm gonna ignore the bigger picture, and that's really not how science works. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that the skepticism is encouraged in the scientific method. Okay, it's part of it. So it's not easy to be a scientist. People have some kind of very strange image of scientists, I guess. These kind of very rich people, they're not very rich, and they have to write papers, and these papers have to be peer reviewed, because if they're not, then you're not advancing as a scientist. So it's really not simple as some people might think. I guess it's a point worth making again when I actually start the show. So I'm just gonna make it a little bit brighter. Around here, I guess. Yeah, that's a bit better. Yeah. Okay, all right. Okay, today's date is what again? 24, May 24. Okay, all right, good, excellent. I'm ready. Okay, so 3, 2, 1. Hey everyone, and welcome to another interesting episode of Age of Reason. I just want to mention that next week is going to be the last show of the season. Then I'm going to take a break. My health condition is not great. I really need a break for my body, especially, and my mind. So today I'm going to continue what I started last week. So if you have not watched last week's show, I really urge you to go ahead and do that sometime, because here today we're just going to kind of jump straight into it, and if you didn't pay any attention before, you're going to be completely lost today, I guess. So there's that. Before I start, so I got a comment on my last show, which I just found hilarious. And yeah, of course, this person got banned. Don't be surprised. I'm just going to read some parts of it, but my previous show was about how conservatives in this case Republicans, obstruct climate change policies. And today is going to be part 2 of that. So here we have a person, this Marty, and he says, obstructing nothing. Oh, come on. So already in the first 2 words, you already are a liar. He continues, in fact, every country should turn its territory and treasury to America, and we will fix it. Yeah, sure, of course. Sure, Marty. And then he says, oh, that's right, America and West die, and hand all that shit over to couple gay-ass pedophiles, select few to do the same shit. I mean, come on, seriously? You honestly want me to take you seriously? And then, of course, he says it's a communist trickery. So I said, this is not even worth replying to. There's no point to waste my time on you people. You just don't belong here. That's all. Just move on to some, go to Fox News, man. That's where you belong. Go to Breitbart. That's exactly where people like you belong, I guess. What it tells me is that I make no apology for saying that we have a lot of people in our country who are stone cold idiots, okay? And this Marty person is just one of many. He's not he might be even mentally ill, because this type of craziness is really unnatural, okay? So if he's mentally ill, I understand a little bit, but it's not an excuse. And we also have to say a big thanks to Reagan, I guess, because he kicked out a lot of mentally ill people just into the streets, well, when he was president. And he was doing that also as a governor before. So trying to save money, hey, let's kick all the mentally ill people out of the mental institutions and let's see what happens. And guess what? Of course, these people, they now mixed with the average population, and they have children and they're still crazy, okay? Most likely. These people, these are the type of people who walk around and they say, I'm Napoleon Bonaparte or whatever. You can't reason with these type of people, okay? It's sad that they are this way, but now they all have a cell phone and they all try to participate in these kind of debates, and it just doesn't work. So if you missed last week, I just want to repeat a few key points so then you're not entirely lost for this show. So I mentioned that basically the Republicans, the conservatives, have 3 approaches to deal with climate change. So there's the associations approach, which basically tries to bring groups together and tries to basically persuade people on climate change. In my opinion, it doesn't really work, because if a person denies science, then you can't convince that person of anything at all. It's not just climate change, it's also evolution. So do you also refuse evolution? Okay, so you can refuse evolution if you want to, but what is your explanation then? And don't tell me it's God, because that is not an explanation. There's the libertarian approach, but that also doesn't really work, because basically right now we put too much faith in big corporations and stuff like that. But libertarian approach basically says we're going to put the control in the hands of just average people and hope that it's better, but I don't see any evidence of that, and the article neither. And finally, the innovation approach, which basically looks at kind of subsidies, but to fossil fuel industries. And they also consider nuclear, which I said nuclear is no longer feasible, because I think there is not a single nuclear power plant in the US right now that is actually making a profit. Okay, so that means that they're losing money, and that means that they're going to go bankrupt eventually. Not a solution. Plus, we have so much waste from it. There's a risk of explosion, etc. So anyway, not a good solution anymore. That boat has sailed long ago. And I finished the show with this graph, and all it shows basically is that there is a very clear intellectual divide in our country. So the Democrats are primarily, like 92% of people in this survey anyway, basically say that yes, we should produce 100% renewable energy, and that climate change is a real threat and danger to our future. But if you contrast to the Republicans, only 27% of them think that that's the case. And in fact, 50% of them say that it's not necessary, it's not probably happening, and it's just a waste of money. So yeah, we have a clear intellectual divide in the country. As my first comment here showed, we have people like Marty out there, many of them, and you really can't have a conversation with these people. It's impossible. That's why I don't. That's why, sorry, but you can just go back to your hole on Fox News or Breitbart. I'm not interested in listening to nonsense. You people who are watching my show are not entitled to my time. I have things to do as well. So if I engage somebody, then it has to be a fair debate with facts and evidence. You don't have any facts and evidence, then fuck off. I'm not interested in your fucking emotional outbursts, okay? I'm interested in cold hard data. So if you don't have anything, then what are you even doing here? Please explain. So the article today continues. While climate change itself is entirely polarized, the report cites research showing that there are a few phrases or approaches that still don't draw mass conservative opposition. Innovation still tickles their fancy, and they still largely like clean energy, both renewables and nuclear. Well, okay, again, nuclear, I already talked about it, but yeah, renewables, who doesn't like the renewables? I mean, what is wrong with these people? So you have an option to live near a dirty coal plant and get sick from it, and people do, or you have an option to live near solar energy, which, you know, we can also fix it for the nighttime, etc. It's mostly clean. Of course, yeah, there is a certain dirty process involved in producing the solar panels. I understand that. But essentially, you're comparing really apples and oranges. You're living in clean air on one scenario, and with probably asthma and other respiratory diseases if you live next to a coal plant, okay? So in my opinion, the choice is very clear, but I don't know, some people really oppose it, so okay. Whatever floats your boat, I guess. The report also divides conservatives into subcategories and suggests that some of them, like the New Era enterprisers, or the market skeptic Republicans, might be especially amenable to targeted climate messages, as long as advocates avoid belief-based messages, for example, whether climate change is happening, and focus on solutions-based messages. Some of these subgroups could, maybe, perhaps, someday be brought along. So, okay, the translation of this is basically, it says that the people who are well-educated and well-informed and know the science, they have to dumb down their message to even talk to conservatives. That's what it's saying, and that's a pathetic state of affairs, in my opinion. But here we glimpse between the lines an enormous asymmetry between left and right in American politics. Like I said, the left has an army of people in universities, think tanks, and consultancies, examining public opinion, using all the latest tools, producing the most sophisticated reports. And it doesn't work all the time, okay? But when it works, it's very efficient. The basic model of savvy realism on the center left is to study the shape of public opinion with all its subcategories and react to it. And the right is very different from that. So meanwhile, the right has an army of people on cable news, the radio, and Facebook, as I found out as well, dedicated to shaping public opinion, stroking it, dragging it rightward, not investigating it, not charting it, not reacting to it, just creating it. So again, people who are watching my show, and you know, some people might be averse to facts, some kind of, you know, hardcore Republicans, but these are the facts, man. You're just on the wrong side of things. And maybe in the future you'll understand that. That's my hope. Maybe right now you think a certain way, a wrong way, because some people are just on the wrong side of history. So I hope that in the future, when you mature enough in your brain, that in 10, 20, 30 years, you'll actually come to our position. But man, it would have taken you a long time. I'm 35 and I get all this stuff. And some people I see, they're like 50, 60-year-old dudes, and they still don't understand anything. So age is just kind of a number. The left's technocrats are targeting values-based messages at new era enterprisers, while the right is out building full-fledged identities, letting conservatives know what they're supposed to think. Imagine, if you will, that innovation really started taking off and becoming the basis for bipartisan climate policy. Or imagine that new era enterprisers really started coalescing around climate action. Imagine, it's like that John Lennon song, Imagine. Imagine that earnest conservative advocacy groups succeeded in generating some small movement among some part of the GOP towards some kind of climate action. If Fox didn't like it, and Fox wouldn't, because Fox is funded by the big money conservatives whose interests are bound with fossil fuels, Fox would kill it immediately. End of story, sad trumpet. But let's be fair here. On the so-called left or center Democrats, this also happens. I mentioned Dianne Feinstein. Sorry, but now she's going to be a part of my show forever, I guess. But she also takes money from fossil fuel industries. So yes, Democrats are very much part of the problem as well. That's the thing. We don't really have a proper opposition party in the US. Both parties are pro-guns. Both parties are, paid by similar donors, let's say, perhaps not the same exact individuals, but the same idea. And that's a problem. That's a big problem. That's why we don't, it's so hard to achieve any kind of change in our country, because we don't have this kind of good opposition party. One party would say, hey, we want guns, then the opposition should be, we should have no guns. That's the whole point of the word opposition. And it wouldn't be hard. All they would have to do is make up some scary story about it. Whatever it is socialism or some variety of other. And then repeat that story over and over for weeks or two. Voila, conservatives would turn against whatever it is. The green shoots would be crushed. And yeah, that's certainly true. Conservatives are freaked out by the word socialism. They don't understand that what we're trying to do is have a democratic socialism, which is not the same thing. But, for them it's the same, because who cares, really? Both words have ism, so it must be bad. In my documentary, there was a part where there was one guy talking about the different systems out there. And he was asked, what does he think about these systems? And he says, communism, fascism, socialism, it's the same thing. They all end with ism. Like, what? But that's what I'm saying. These type of crazy, insane, stupid fucking morons live in our country right now. And they're voting, and we know how that goes. That's who we're fighting against. Look, I'm not your enemy here, okay? These people out there, they are your enemy. That's just the reality. Their backwards thinking of the Dark Ages, that's what holds us back as a country. No climate groups on the left or right can do the same. It's not that they lack clever messages carefully tested by the best social scientists. They don't lack information or ideas or facility with language. They lack power. Power is what it takes to shape public opinion. The power and money to maintain multiple direct channels to voters, blasting a unified message at all times. And I don't know, this is certainly the case in the US, but this is not the case in Japan, for example, where I live. This is one reason why our elections, for example, last forever. It seems like after one cycle, the next cycle immediately starts. You already have people interested in running, and they already start to talk to voters, and that entire process takes 4 years. It's an insane long time, and there's of course a ton of money tied into it. It's a huge, huge issue, okay? We don't need to repeat the message, we just need to understand it. That's the thing. I don't need to have faith in science. Science is not a faith-based system. it's an evidence-based system. I don't need to have faith to understand evolution. I just need to understand it. And that's the big difference. Along the same lines, take a look at this study from Navigator Research. It found that 34% of Americans who watch Fox News at least a few times a month. Those who do operate with a very different set of facts than those who don't. So let's see the graph here. So here we go. On climate change, non-Fox News watching Republicans are twice as likely as other Republicans to believe in human-caused climate change. So let's look at this in a bit more detail here. So you see that basically if you are a Fox News viewer, then you believe that, you actually don't believe that climate change is man-made. But if you don't watch Fox News, then you do. And it's the same thing with socialism. So, a lot of Republicans think that Democrats are just concerned about socialism in the Democrat Party, and that's the problem. They have no evidence. They are provided these data. So that's the thing I say all the time. You can find data that contradicts everything I say on my show, but you have to have some kind of objective way to verify it, because this is very subjective, and that's what they're trying to do. They're not trying to build a big picture. They're trying to just brainwash people into thinking the way that they do. It's the same on virtually every issue. Fox News viewers are 10 to 20 points to the right of their non-Fox watching counterparts in both parties. Conservative media is a tool built to drag opinion among conservatives and the policy, I guess it's the typo here, policy generally, to the right. It ensures that no matter the current political battle, whether it's NFL players kneeling, Brett Kavanaugh getting on the bench, or cap and trade, the right-wing base is unified and furious. That's why I said on the last show, so when it comes to very kind of big issues, you'll see that the Republicans vote all against it. So they will, like healthcare, for example, all the Republicans vote against healthcare reform. When it comes to war, then it's different. They love war. They are paid by it, by the military-industrial complex, etc. So that's different. But usually they are very unified and furious. And that is not the same in the Democratic Party. The left has no such machine. And even if it did, it's too demographically and economically heterogeneous, I should say, to maintain in a simple common narrative. No matter how broadly supported the left's tax, health, or climate policies, it can rarely match the right's depth of intensity. And in politics, intensity wins. And that's the problem. That's why we have so many issues in the country that are not getting solved, because these type of media outlets, they focus on people's emotions and they don't teach them how to think rationally and critically. My point in all of this is simply that no matter what small gaps may be visible in the wall of Republican opposition on climate policy now, it's easy enough for the right to shore them up. Fox has the trust of and direct access to the right base in a way that no institution on the left can match. All the values-based messages in the world won't matter if Fox can drown them out. So that's the midterm. Last week I talked about the short term. This was the midterm. And I just want to start a little bit on the long term, and of course I will continue that on the next show, otherwise it's too long. So the long term is basically like climate change is intrinsically insulting to conservative values. Most people assume that Republicans will eventually have to come around on climate change, if only for electoral reasons. Young people are turning against them. A recent national poll of 18 to 29-year-olds found that 45% of young Americans, including 50% of those likely to vote, agreed that climate change is a crisis and demands urgent action. So I just want to say this. America, of course, is a big country. I mean, the United States, I should say, because America is the continent. It's a big country. A lot of people don't even travel outside of it. The last statistics I saw were that only 30% of Americans have a passport. And without a passport, that means you can't go abroad. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you can enter Canada. I'm not sure. But anyway, going to Canada, that's really not a big leap. I'm talking about really going out to Europe, to Asia, to Africa, even South America, of course, really, really outside of Canada and Mexico, outside of that little bubble. Then you have a higher chance of understanding the world. I have friends from Texas who live in Japan now. They were born in Texas. They started out very religious, and they moved away because they wanted to explore the world more, and now they're agnostic atheists, because they saw that in Japan people are not religious, but they're still, relatively good to each other. So you don't need religion to be good to other people. They treat nature with more respect here. Yeah, Japan has other issues, but certain things are better here than in the U.S. That's for sure. But the point of it is that you need to go out there and explore the world. You can't just sit in your basement somewhere and think that you understand the world. That doesn't work like that. In fact, it doesn't work like that at all, because you'll just believe whatever you hear from your people who live in that same bubble, who also never traveled abroad. And then you listen to these, Fox News or CNN or MSNBC all day long, and that's all your source of information. So they tell you what to think. You're not doing the thinking for yourself. And I suppose that on some horizon that is true. Climate change certainly isn't going away, and it's a much higher stakes issue for young people. But I would add a note of caution to this kind of triumphalism. A great deal of research has gone into examining the deeper differences between liberals and conservatives, the differences that stretch beyond ideology into temperament, psychology, and neurology. One reason those differences are salient at the moment is that Americans have been sorting not only by race, income, and ideology, but even by personality. And I will talk about this more on the next show. But I just want to come back to this very quickly. So this thing is very true. This is certainly an issue for young people, mostly, because we have to live with the impacts of climate change that are going to get worse and worse as the time goes on. So I understand if you're some kind of old dude, I'd say old in a relative thing here, but like in the 60s, 70s, or older than that, I can see why you wouldn't care about it. A lot of old voters vote a certain way because they don't really care. They're gonna die soon. That's the reality. So they don't have to live with the consequences of their actions, but young people do. And so it's very important, in the upcoming election, or elections, I should say, that young people turn out in great numbers. It's important. I always say, don't just be a couch voter. So, people are very quick to vote on some kind of online poll, CNN or whatever. Hey, what do you think about this? And vote. So people are very good at that, sitting at home and clicking a button on the phone. But when it comes to actually making an effort, going out and standing in line for many hours and voting, although we see that to a certain extent, but not enough, a lot of people just stay home. Our voter turnout is only 60%. America claims to be the world's #1 democracy, yet we can't even have nearly half the country out to vote. I think that just shows that something is really fundamentally broken there. On that note, that's it for today. Just want to remind people to please check out my book, Beyond the Obscure. It's available on Amazon in print and ebook. If the print is too expensive, then consider getting an ebook. And check out my art on Redbubble, and I will see you next week for the last show of the season. It's kind of fitting that it's episode 50, a very round number. So anyway, until then. Okay, well, that's it for today. If you have any kind of questions or comments, if people are watching online right now, then it's the time to ask. I know that this doesn't make everybody happy. I'm not, because this is kind of the world that we live in right now. I'm not there to be everyone's friend. There are certain categories of people that I just do not talk to anymore, because there's no point in wasting my time, really, or my energy, or my health, which is really awful. I mean, I'm really surprised. It's kind of a miracle I'm able to do the show once a week. I mean, I'm really in a bad shape, so I just think that if I don't do this, then it's just kind of a waste. I have many things to say, many comments to say, many different comments, I think. I certainly don't hear what I'm talking about in the mainstream media, that's for sure. I mean, I can open CNN right now. I can guarantee you that there are very few important stories right now up there. Climate change is a huge issue. They should be talking about it every single day, but they don't. They don't at all. At all. In fact, I noticed the other day they were worried about the name of the baby of the royal, like the royal family in the UK. Who cares? Who cares about that? Who cares about the name of a baby? It's not like the baby is special. Oh, just because he comes from the royal family, he's special. Come on. Give me a break. Or if a baby was a rare thing or something, then maybe I would understand, but come on. There's nearly 8 billion of us. It's not rare. And then, of course, a lot of recycled articles, which I find all the time. Some kind of old pictures of the Soviet places or North Korean places. I've already seen that. It's not new. Just keep recycling it for eternity. So yes, I try to do this because I don't see these articles mentioned elsewhere too much. And it's important that people understand this, Hey, Raymond. Well, yeah, but I don't blame you at all. We have a problem in the country that um, we are not good at science as a nation. We are not great at math or spelling or anything. Our education system has fallen quite far. Um, so, and of course, science and climate change, it's very difficult to communicate now. So you need to generate some kind of interest, and in my opinion, the best way is to show people that climate change is happening right now and that it's affecting people. And not just in Florida, okay? Because it is also in Florida, but not just in Florida. It's happening to small nations, which are basically island nations in South Pacific, for example. Uh, if the water rises for them, these people have nowhere to go. So it's not like in the U.S., huge land. So even if Florida gets entirely flooded, it's okay because these people can move. We have a lot of land. But if you live on a tiny island, I mean, these people would have to just leave their country of birth forever. Maybe they have to move to Australia or something. And then it gets into that whole debate, well, why should Australia take those people? They don't have to. Certainly no obligation. Except from an empathy point of view, of course. Or Bangladesh, right? I mean, Bangladesh could be flooded easily. There's a risk of a huge earthquake happening there, which might flood areas which impact millions of people. And if they have to move, then where are they going to move? To India? But why should India accept them? We go back into this huge political question. It's very complicated. But I think these are the questions we have to answer right now. What if there is a flood somewhere? We have to make a choice right now. Because when people are in panic and they don't know what to do, then it's too late. A lot of people will die. And if you're very interested in the topic, I just want to recommend one thing. There is a great online course and it's free. A lot of them are free these days. And I recommend, it's called Denial 101X. Just type that in Google, Denial 101X. And it's a great course. It goes into a lot of these climate change myths that you might hear, and it debunks them. So you have the tools to explain certain situations better. And I recommend this course. If I remember, I will try to stick a promo for it in the next show, or even in this show. And you don't have to do the certificate course. You can just do the. You can just kind of watch the lectures in your own time. I do the quizzes. The quizzes are okay, but I just don't have the time to do the essays. So unfortunately, then I can't take that particular course. But I could. It's not very complicated. It's maybe just writing 2 pages or something, a brief report of some case study. It's a good exercise, and it uses peer review, so your work will be reviewed by other students of the course and some teachers as well. So you get a glimpse of this entire scientific process, even if it's just a tiny paper of 2 pages long or something. It's a good thing to go through. You learn a lot. Okay, guys. Thanks for watching. I'm gonna end the Facebook right now, and I'm just gonna leave YouTube running for 1 more minute or something, just in case some people drop any question or something. But anyway, people on Facebook, thanks for watching, and of course, look out for the edited version. And I will catch you next week for the last part. It's a very long article, I know, but it's important, I think, this one in particular. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Okay, so the Facebook is off. I'm just leaving it on YouTube just for 1 more minute, just in case some people drop any comment or something like that. Okay, well, there doesn't appear to be anything. So anyway, it's kind of, I know it's a very heavy kind of show. There's a lot of things to absorb there, and that's okay. I mean, you can take your time. Well, this article I already prepared last week, so I already read most of it. But yeah, it's a very long article. But you know what? That's not an excuse. The length is not a problem. People say that it is, and people have short attention span, but man, if you want to learn something in depth, then you'll have to bear with the long articles, long lectures, or whatever. That's the way it goes. You can't fit everything into a tweet. You can't explain complicated science in a tweet. Okay, it's impossible. So yeah, if you want to be a serious thinker, then you have to be prepared to read long things and watch long lectures, listen to other opinion, and that's how it goes, man. I didn't create the world. That's the way that it is. All right, so I'm gonna end it here for today. So again, thanks for watching, and look out for the edit sometime next week. And of course, I will see you for the last show, episode 50, next Friday. So until then, take care.